Good day, everyone. Welcome to the first panel discussion on the Eastern Hemisphere sessions. I'm Dr. Maran Najati from Edith Cowan University, and I will be the moderator for this Dean's Dialogue on PRME and SDGs in the post-pandemic era. Before I start the session and introduce our panelists briefly, I would like to acknowledge the country and pay my respect to the land on which I work and live, acknowledge its traditional custodians, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We know that universities play a very important role in educating the next generation of responsible leaders and ethical change makers for a better world. Through teaching and learning, research, innovation, and day-to-day operations, universities can develop students' capabilities as future leaders to contribute to a more inclusive and sustainable global economy. Universities can also advance knowledge on sustainable value creation, responsible leadership, and sustainable development goals through collaboration, partnership, and creating a platform for dialogue and debate among various stakeholders on sustainability issues and challenges. You might have noticed that on the panel today, we are still missing Professor Dima Jamali. She has had some technical issues, and we are hoping that the technical team might be able to help her so that she can join us halfway through. Given that we only have 45 minutes, I guess without any hesitation, I would like to start by asking the first question from our panel member. And the way that this works is that I will be asking a number of questions, and we will ask all the panel members to respond to the questions in turn. So for the first question, I'm interested to know, how has the pandemic affected your business school and its sustainability practices? And perhaps we can start with Mariam.
Thanks, Mehran, and thanks everyone. And it's really a great honor to be part of this Dean's panel and to be invited to be one of the speakers. For me, I see sustainability as core business in all of our operations. It's a thread that for me runs through all of our activities and everything that we do. And that includes teaching and learning, so in the curriculum, research and our research activities, but also our industry partnerships as well. And really, sustainability is something that was front and center for us at Edith Cowan University. So I'm the Executive Dean of the School of Business and Law at Edith Cowan University, which is based in Perth, Western Australia. So it really was front and center for us pre-pandemic. Sustainability is one of the 4 pillars in the university's strategic plan. And that makes it one of the 4 pillars in our business school's strategic plan. So it really does, it's part of the landscape of what we do and how we do it. And I can sort of give you a few examples of what's been happening at the school and university level, really to work towards that agenda. So we continue to have activities in our curriculum, and I can sort of give examples a bit later on. But one of the significant things that happened at the university level late last year was there were 9 centrally funded strategic research centres through a competitive process that were put up at the university. And one of the 9 was the Centre for People, Place and Planet. And that shows significant commitment at the university level. And can I say it's a delight, because my member from the School of Business and Law, who's part of this Strategic Research Centre, is Mehran, who's our facilitator. So it's really a great pleasure to be involved at that level. In terms of how things have affected our business schools, I'm very lucky. In Perth, Western Australia, to be honest with you, we've been fairly protected by the impacts of the pandemic, because we are fairly isolated from the rest of the world. In fact, we're fairly isolated from the rest of Australia, being a 4-hour flight from Sydney and 3.5-hour flight from Melbourne. So what's happened, we are the only university in Western Australia of the 5 that hasn't had to go through any downsizing process and have any job losses as a result of the COVID pandemic. And a lot of that goes back to sustainability being front and center for us, and really astute financial management at the university level. And that's protected jobs and has had minimal impact on our students going forward. I can talk a bit more about our research later on.
Thanks, Miriam. Back to you, Pervez, now.
Thank you very much. Likewise, I first want to say it's a great privilege to be here, to be speaking at this particular forum, and similar to what Mariam was saying, sustainability and responsible management is actually pretty much central to the university, Monash University, parent in the Melbourne campus. I'm situated in the Malaysia campus, and it is a key pillar of our research as well as our education as well. So I do echo exactly what Mariam has said as well in terms of the centrality of sustainability and environmental issues to the university and the importance of these. In terms of how the pandemic has really affected the business school and our practices, I have to look back and say the pandemic really did catch us off guard. We were quite blindsided by it, and maybe in some ways, at the very beginning, even my thinking was, this will blow over in 3 months, maybe 6 months, and here we are, 1.5 years down the road, and it's still with us. So I have to say that our first reflex was relatively reactive to the pandemic, and thinking it was it was something that was occurring in China, and perhaps it was not going to come and hit us. But clearly it did hit us, and it hit us very hard as well. So our essential way impacted us initially was the scramble that we had to do to go online, and I think this is commonly shared by everybody else. And it really tested the mettle of our staff, the adaptability of our staff to really quickly move to an online forum, a hybrid model, and that is where I think we really felt the impact of the COVID-19. You also tested our infrastructure as well. I mean, the technological infrastructure that we had in the Malaysia campus, the bandwidths that we had, were they able to cope with this? But we came through that, and I think we did really well within that particular domain. But again, I guess the key thing when we're looking at the technological response was really coming back to the resilience of the people, and also the ability of our school to work as a team. Previously, academic staff, and we had the professional staff or administrative staff, they all worked in their own little lovely silos. But it really brought together the team. It presented a very strong culture where we shared a lot of knowledge. We were going out of our ways. Different departments were coming together, showing and helping each other. So actually, COVID-19 actually demonstrated a very positive impact in that sense. It brought us together to actually say, here's a huge challenge, and we really have to come together to deal with this. So I guess in some ways this was a positive view. As Mariam also said, the sustainability aspect was also deeply embedded within the school. When I took over as the head of the school, I developed a strategic plan for the school, which I said was Future Ready 2030. And within that, we wanted to become externally focused and very dynamic business school. And a key component of that was to actually engage with the key challenges that the world faces, the key problems that the world faces. And those were sustainability issues, and the SDGs featured very strongly in that. The second aspect, perhaps if I can be allowed a little bit of time, was the people challenge. So whilst COVID, we responded very positively, working from home was a real challenge for us. Our staff members started to feel isolated. There were lots of stresses at home. Working and looking after children were some key things that we found that we were not really never thought about these things. And also home as a work environment, space. Not everybody was fortunate enough to have lovely homes and rooms. They had children running around. They had to deal with all of these things. And in the end, all of this evolved into what I think are really serious stresses. It led to some mental and health well-being issues to arise as a major thing. What I found was that people were sitting on their screens for long hours and getting physical exhaustion and stresses. But emotional and psychological distress was also appearing. So it was something that we had to look at and deal with as well. So we had to see how we could help our staff members, to reach out to counselors. We also currently at the university level have moved to use an app called Naluri, which is a health app to help our staff deal with some of the challenges that they're actually facing as well. So that was our staff, both our academic staff and our professional staff, really being impacted by this. But no one was really spared. Our students also, I think, were really impacted by the whole experience. Our students were living in dormitories, especially international students, who were really isolated. So this became someone into some states of depression, and we really needed to see how we dealt with that. There were other anxieties from our students about their exam tests and results. Our good students were worried that the results might go down and things like that. So we had to deal with those. And last but not least, our students were really worried about their futures. With this kind of environment, once they graduated, where will they go? What kind of jobs could they actually get now that everybody was closed down and we had a large lockdown domestically in Malaysia, but even our international students coming from regions such as India, Sri Lanka, the Middle East, and elsewhere were really anxious about these issues. So I think it was a real challenge for us to try and provide those counseling to see how we could help our students and reassure them. So these are the key things. And then I guess the last point, if I may be allowed to make, is really about the university kind of response as well at a big level. It was not really helped by the kind of large scale restructuring that was taking place. I call it sometimes, in some senses, it reminded me of what everybody was saying at the time, the famous quote by Winston Churchill that never waste a crisis. But I think within this crisis, under the cover of this particular crisis, lots of restructuring was taking place, which I think we could have done without. It created unnecessary distress, and some, I think, I call them Rambo managers, where someone really appeared on the scene, and there were very interesting scenarios. And this reform and restructuring was good in some aspects, also led to real impacts on the culture of the school and the general feeling within the university. So what are we really about? Are we really about people? We're talking about people, and we're talking about sustainability. So what sustainability are we talking about? And for me, the most important sustainability practice is to get our staff and students to be sustainable. It is my job as the dean of the school to actually ensure their sustainability. Before I can look after anything else, I have to make sure that my staff and my students are able to function effectively. So I think I looked at this and said, I have to cure this. Yes, there are huge problems in the world, but I have to really grapple as a dean with this and see how I can see my staff, my people, and my students through this whole episode. So I feel the COVID environment actually to an interesting clangor in the works, and it distracted us from many things. It also brought some good things as well. So I think that's I'll move on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think based on your responses, you both highlighted that this pandemic has created both opportunities and challenges, which is absolutely correct. And a couple of those key competencies that both of you were also highlighting, issues around adaptability, the agility, both at the organizational level and individual level, as well as that resilience, which is really essential. And I guess it really takes us very nicely to the next question that I'm going to ask you, which is around the role of business schools in the post-pandemic recovery. We know that a couple of these competencies are perhaps essential to be able to operate efficiently in such an environment. And I'm curious to see what you see the role of business schools to be in a post-pandemic recovery. Starting again with Mariam.
Thanks, Mehran. I think post-pandemic is going to be some time away. I think we're going to be in pandemic for a while. So I think our current good practices will need to continue. One of the things that I might just want to give some context here. So I've got a staff base of around 130 people in my School of Business and Law. 70% of those people were born overseas. I've got a very diverse workforce that I've got. And you can imagine what the shut borders in Australia would have done to people who had family, close family, parents, siblings, children even overseas. So it really requires a different skill set in terms of managing the way forward, and that's at the business school level. So I think we've got a key responsibility to be role modeling appropriate type behaviors and activities in the business schools, given we're going to be working towards recovery, and sort of really looking at collaborative arrangements internally within our universities and externally within our industry partners and organizations. Now, I'll just give you some examples that, and again, we were very fortunate last year. I did mention that our university put significant central funding behind 9 strategic research centres at our university. One of them, which sits squarely in the School of Business and Law, is called the Centre for Work and Wellbeing. And we've got a group of 10 amazing people and a number of collaborators internally within the university and externally and internationally who are working with us. Now, to be honest with you, we have been, and I'm a member of that centre as well, we have been run off our feet with the research projects and the external grants and funding that's been coming in, because our focus has been very much around work and well-being in the pandemic environment. And really the centre was up and running early last year, and we started with looking at arrangements and organizations, and then COVID-19 and the pandemic hit. And it was an amazing experience in seeing real-time responsiveness of organizations to the challenges. And again, as a business school, we were working with our industry partners to look at good practice, and a classic example, and I'll give you an example of a few areas that we focused on: significant issues around mental health of the workforce, people who had to work from home, and Perez did mention a number of challenges that people had in terms of location and setup, the loneliness. And again, in Perth, Western Australia, we're quite unique in that our lockdown was only for a few weeks. We never really had to go through extended periods of having to wear masks at all. I can think of 2 or 3 week period where we had to. We've been living fairly normally. But there was a lot of work at home, and there are people who live alone, who had family overseas that were going through difficulty, and mental health has become a very, very big issue locally, nationally, and internationally as a result of COVID. So we've been doing significant work in that space. We've been looking at how organizations are managing diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And again, this is sort of within the pandemic era. Some access has been better, and again, this is a mixed bag in that there's opportunities that are coming up and there's challenges that we've been faced in. But suddenly, with this rethinking of the way that people work, with the change in the mindset that, hey, people can work remotely, and we've all been part of that experiment where we have had suddenly to go home, it's opened opportunities and it's opened doors for some groups who would have been probably in the past not on the radar in terms of recruitment practices. And it has brought about opportunities for having more diversity in the workplace, and people who couldn't previously participate, maybe doing so but remotely, and really recruitment opportunities. And a lot around leadership and management through what we're now calling the new normal. And the big takeaway message, if I was going to sort of sum it up in that research space, is that the managers and the leaders during pandemic and going forward will need to have far more well-developed relationship management skills and competencies. It was always required, but this is really next level because of the serious implications of mental health coming into the workforce. So our centre has been doing amazing work around good practice, around remote working, and as a result of, and we do give back. That's part of the role of, and we're a public university, but it is part of the role of any university to share good practice. The mission of our school, one of the 3 elements of it is engaged applied research. So it's not research for the sake of research, it's research to give back and to enrich society. So we have been having a lot of public forums, free of charge, of course, giving back to industry of these lessons. But again, we've been inundated in terms of organizations who want to partner with us so we can do work with them, who we can do research with them, and look at interventions that they can put in place really going forward. So I think if I was going to sort of sum it all up together, is we need to do as much as we can to see what's good practice going forward during and post-pandemic when the time comes. And really we need to share that good practice with the community, the wider community, industry partners and organizations. And again, that's going to be a key pillar in terms of sustainability on a number of fronts. Happy to hand over to
Thanks, Mara. Purvis.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I would sort of very much concur with what Mariam said. Post-pandemic, we don't know what that is. It may be here, especially when we look at these sort of north-south divide, the global inequities that still are present, the level of vaccination that takes place perhaps in Africa and even in countries like Malaysia, which are lagging. I think COVID-19 is probably here to stay for far longer than we really wish it to do so. But it's good to sort of reflect over what we will be doing post-pandemic. So for me, I mean, what is the role of the school? I mean, I think as the head of the school and sort of one that took over not too long ago, I think the key role is to actually ensure relevance of the business school in a post-pandemic world, because I think it's going to be something that we need to sort of really check and see whether we are relevant to this new world that we will sort of come out into. And the fact is that even before COVID-19 appeared, the type of value that we business schools provided, the type of relevance it provided to society was being challenged and contested by many stakeholders, government bodies, societies, even companies who are asking, okay, the graduates that you're sort of churning out are not work ready, and therefore, you know, what's the relevance of these? So there is a lot of questions that were sort of being asked of business schools, and we really need to sort of grapple with that. And all I feel COVID really did was accelerated and expose those particular vulnerabilities at a much faster pace. When I took charge, as I said earlier on, I sort of developed what I said was a strategic outlook. And the key question there was, how will we be relevant into the future, and what is the value that we will be sort of adding as business educators? Will we be sort of creating individuals and graduates which fulfill the needs of businesses, but also fulfill the needs of the common good, the needs of society as well, because there's a lot of, let me say, stakeholders, actors who are all sort of vying for the same space. So when we look at the university itself, we have a range of faculties. We have the School of Medicine, the School of Science, we have School of Engineering, and all of them are able to even articulate a very clear value. You know, so the medical doctors, I always find out, they say, well, I'm tackling cancer, I'm saving lives. So when it comes to sort of the business school, the articulation and the convincing of the value that we actually want to add is much more difficult. So I think we really need to sort of work at that and see how we can be relevant in the post-pandemic world. And in order to do that, I think we really have to sort of engage with the key challenges of society and how we sort of advance society rather than just be teachers of economics and profit maximization. So and just share simple shareholder wealth creation. So we need to sort of move beyond that. And I think this is why I'm really happy that we have bodies such as the UN Global Compact and Prime really pushing this, because they're really encouraging us to actually change what we were doing before to something that is actually much more impactful, much more engaged with the societies that we live in, contribute to the societies that we live in. So it is actually wonderful to be part of this initiative, and Meta and all the others. I think it's actually great, because it's actually telling us the right things. As Meta also pointed out, there was 860 schools, business schools, which have become signatories to Prime. That is great. But I would say it is actually something much more than this, because I mean, like us, we have beautiful photographs of SDG goals on our walls. We talk about SDGs and sustainability in our meetings. But how many schools have really moved to actions? We have to move beyond words into actions, and I think that is really important. So for me, I think maybe I'm taking too much time. I think I'm looking at our curriculum. I'm looking to revise the curriculum completely, to actually embed the moral and ethical dimensions into the curriculum, to actually embed sustainability issues and create graduates who are actually morally sensitized citizens of the world and leaders. I actually joined Monash University only on one basis, and that was the vision of Sir John Monash. That was to contribute back to the community. So this is the basis why I joined the university, and is the basis which actually drives me to really engage with this. And so I guess what I'm saying is that we need to look at the skills that we create and how appropriate they are. Looking at graduate employability, and also seeing how relevant we will be in the new world where different forms of competition are going to emerge. So we really need to tackle those post-pandemic. I'll stop there. I think I've said enough.
That's all right. No, fantastic. Thank you both for your responses. I'm just moving on to the final question that I've got for you, and I think you almost kick-started part of the answers to that question, Perviz, which I'm interested to now look into specific examples in terms of how your business school has been trying to integrate and perhaps even implement some of those principles of in what it does. Specific examples would be ideal if you can provide.
Sure.
Mariam?
I'm going first, I'm assuming. Look, it started with actually investing and resourcing. So we appointed a director of sustainability to really lead the agenda for our school from a strategic perspective, because it does need to form part of our strategy, part of our operational plan, and then have specific activities. So that role has been critical, and I can tell everybody that that person is actually Mehran, and our director, who's doing a phenomenal job over the last few years in really leading, taking up the challenge, bringing people along with him. We have a committee that he leads, and that the committee is formed from all of our separate academic units and disciplines, as well as our professional staffing. So the first thing is really to have the strategy, to invest, to have a plan. And then we look at the curriculum, and I think both Perviz and I have talked about embedding what we're doing into the curriculum. There is a theme that we want to run through all of our programs, and that's in play, and it's started. There's specific areas, for example, just recently, and it was only a few weeks ago in one of our units where we had students go out and I think plant 200 trees, and it was part of the activities of one of our units. So really partnering again with external organizations giving back. We also invested in what we call the ECU tax clinic. So what is that? We again have partnered with external tax agents, our academics in law internally, and we bring students into the programs. We're members of the community and public, some who can't actually afford potentially advice at that level come into the university, and we provide them with advice around taxation. We've got a similar centre around what we call the Northern Community Legal Communities, Northern Suburbs Community Legal Centre, where people can come in for legal advice. And then we have legal practitioners as well as our internal academics working with the students to engage with the community. So there is a lot happening. And again, this is not recent, in 2018 and 2019, each year had a study tour to Bhutan. Now, Bhutan is a phenomenal country, and I'm sure most of you know that it's the only country in the world with a zero carbon footprint. So we had study tours, and we partnered with our School of Science, and a group of our students did go to really look at it is about absorbing all of the good practice that's happening in that environment and even bringing it back with us. In terms of research, what we've done is, and again, the state government in Western Australia, where I am, has invested quite heavily in recovery post-COVID. And I'm very proud of two of our senior academics who did win fairly sizable six-figure grants each around recovery. So business resilience post-COVID was one of them, and the other one was mental health issues at work as a result of the COVID pandemic and what interventions can be put in place. So that's sort of from a research angle, but of course we look at research-informed teaching. So all of those learnings through those research projects then really flow into our curriculum and therefore our students. And we've had other activities that the school is engaged with, and just a few of them. Some of it sort of started at the university level. We do have a climate task force at the university level that's led by one of our senior deputy vice chancellors, and again Mehran is part of that group as one of the leaders of that forum driving initiatives. We banned plastic water bottles on campus, I think going on 2 years now, and not in any of the sort of little machines where you can put money in, not in any of the coffee shops on campus, which is phenomenal. And what I did at the school level, I invested money and I bought everybody a glass water bottle that obviously they can take around to the meetings, and we've got stations where that can be filled. We've got amazing initiatives where we have an urban pantry donation scheme where our staff bring in food, and we donate it to sort of an open kitchen for people who can't afford things. We are working with some other not-for-profit organizations. One of them is a cat welfare society that's very close to my heart in Western Australia, where they're actually a collection center for bottles and cans, aluminium, and plastic containers, where there's a 10-cent refund. So the school actually makes a collection and we donate it to the Cat Haven, and they collect the money for the not-for-profit. So it's a win-win for everybody. I'm conscious of the time. There's other initiatives, but I don't want to cut into Pervez's time, so I'll hand over to him.
Thank you very much. I'll try and be sort of cognizant of the time as well. So I'll sort of very quickly sort of pick up on, as I said, earlier, we've sort of defined the vision and mission. I just want to pick up on some of the key things, perhaps, which are much more explicit, much more structural, that we've sort of taken in the business school over here. Like Mariam, we also sort of appointed the director of Prime, and then we sort of go downwards and have ambassadors at the departmental level to sort of raise the awareness of Prime and sustainability issues, so that these issues remain in the foreground rather than get sort of lost within the school. So that is something there. What I've also done is to actually explicitly embed engagement KPI metrics into every department, and then it filters down into engagement metrics for individuals as well. So at the end of the year, we would ask everybody exactly what they've done. And it is a very explicit, some people are not happy with this, but it is an explicit metric there that we wanted to see what kind of engagements they've done. And responsible management features as a key metric in there. And we've got lots of interesting examples. We have a project which we call the Marmary projects, which is driven by our economics department. It's about a small fishing community, and they go out there and sort of work out exactly what the challenges are. We have another one on women entrepreneurs, which is driven by our economics department. Sorry, the first one was by our econometrics department, the second one by our economics department. And it's sort of you go out into the community, you really learn what the problems are. But also within that, we actually have PhDs, which are actually studying those particular communities as well. So within the Women Entrepreneurship project, we sort of linked up to Indonesia. In Indonesia now, we have a PhD student actually looking at that and sort of looking at into those issues. So this engagement KPIs are really exposing our staff to go out there with and really expose with the SDGs, not just look at them in abstract pictures, but it's going to go out into the community, interact and realize what the challenge is, and then actually going to try and sort of come up with a solution. Another structural aspect that we have, which really drives relevance around this agenda, is what I call the EI Hub. Our school mission is around innovation and entrepreneurship, and we created the EI Hub, which is actually focuses and draws in everybody. It's a kind of a nodal point where we sort of do various things like sustainability challenges, hackathons, issues that we tackle, things like on food security that we tackle, plastics environment, for example, we sort of look at, promote women entrepreneurs to sort of come to the campus. So we bring entrepreneurs, disadvantaged communities onto the campus and actually will let them sort of engage with us. So we are actually, our staff experience firsthand what it is to sort of engage with these. I guess this is where we sort of try and make sure that we are able to move the SDG agenda forward through innovation, because I believe it is through innovation and enterprise where we create the solution. So it's not about let's just look at these issues in abstraction and just look at them even in pure abstract research, but let's create better solutions. I believe it is imperative. I think, as Mariam said, we have to also have an applied part where we have to create real solutions and solve real world problems. And I think a couple of these things are structural things which are helping us to sort of deal with the challenges. I have somebody on my door ringing the bell as well.
That's all right. That's the nature of online, isn't it? Fantastic. Thank you very much, both of you. It has been such a pleasure to have two respected Australia region, and I hope that everybody from the audience have found today's discussion as inspiring and insightful as I have found it to be. It was such a pity that Dima couldn't join us due to technical problems, but hopefully next time.